Hey, it's Ghost Dad for ProAudioStar, taking a look at Arturia's Spark Creative Drum Machine. It's actually a dedicated controller that functions with Arturia's own drum plugin and standalone software that is an all-in-one drum solution. It's got lots of great samples. It's got different drum synthesis techniques right in there, and it's all controllable from this unit and on screen as well. Let's take a more in-depth look. At the top of the unit, you'll see a step sequencer, which shows you 16 steps at a time. If you're used to programming beats this way, maybe on a Korg Electribe or on an old school 808 or 909, you'll feel right at home on this Spark sequencer as well. I'll start with this kick sound and make sure I have that selected. And I'll actually just put that on 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I get that 4 on the floor kick sound, and then when I hit play, I've got my kick drum lined in right there. I could do the same thing for the snare. If I want a snare sound on 2 and 4, I can actually dial those in. So it's pretty easy to get going and actually start getting your beats together that way. You saw me playing on these drum pads. They're really responsive and fun to play on if you're an MPC user or if you use a trigger finger or some kind of MIDI controller. You're really going to love these pads and have a lot of fun playing them because they're really responsive. And they feel really good to play. And you can actually play in your beats much in the same way. You saw me sequencing them up top. I can actually use this record function to play things in. So I'll play in a quick hi-hat sound. So you can see you can dial in beats that way also. Once we have some basic beats kind of laid out, you're going to want to change those drum sounds and make them sound the way you want. That's where the knobs right above these pads come in handy. They all tweak different parameters based on what drum sound you have open and what drum synthesizer you're using. So with my snare sound right here, I actually have control of the pitch, the decay, and the snappiness of the drum, which is sort of the attack of the drum. So I can actually take that drum sound up higher if I want, give it a longer decay, so it's a longer sound, and make it more or less punchy, or snappy as they call it here. And I can do that while my pattern's playing as well. So you can get really hands-on with your beats, and you've got some controls over those sounds beyond that as well, depending on which one you have selected. If I select my kick here, I actually get control of cutoff, resonance, and then my effects sends inside the mixer of the software, as well as the panning and the volume of that drum up here. So these are sort of global controls for each drum, depending on which one is selected. This is where I can get a little more in-depth than just the controls that are on the controller, like the pitch, attack, and decay. I can actually change the dampening of the drum, frequency at which it dampens, and actually add some noise to that drum, and actually change the length of that sample here in this window as well. If I want to load in my own samples to the Spark, this is where I do it as well, going into the different layers and then adding a sample from anywhere on my computer, from my drum libraries, the drums I'm using, stuff I've recorded anywhere, I can load it right up into this view as well. The pattern section is up here on the right of the unit. You actually have 16 different patterns you can select, 4 different banks, and you can actually send this whole thing into song mode to line your patterns up into a song and actually start structuring your song that way if you want. In pattern mode alone, you can quickly select through different patterns. The Spark comes with a lot of onboard sounds and also a lot of onboard patterns to get you started. So there's my little beat I just programmed there. I can switch to any one of the onboard patterns instantly. And then up to 4 different banks. The on-screen pattern editor actually lets you fine-tune that beat you just programmed. You can see everything in a MIDI layout right here. You can fine-tune that beat. Maybe I want to add 16ths in the hi-hats instead of 8ths. I can go ahead and click those in if I want to. Can also add other drums to the mix. In the song mode, you can actually see those different patterns I was talking about. You can dial them in here and then actually program them into the song this way and see them all laid out and see how they're going to play there. Being able to get hands-on with the Spark controller makes it a great live tool as well. You saw me shuffling through those different beats, and we also have an effects section here which lets you take control of some different effects for both playing the drums here and playing the patterns back. I've got a filter control. This is great on some kind of like splash cymbal sounds. There's a drum roll setting that actually lets me roll at different intervals while I'm playing that drum and holding it down. I've also got a beat slicer that lets me jog and slice different parts of my beat while I'm playing it live, while you're stepping through a pattern. It's really cool for building up build-ups and kind of creating that kind of electronic-y, breaky kind of sound. Once you've got some beats programmed and all your drums sounding the way you want, mixing those drums is really important, and Spark has a built-in mixer that can help you actually start mixing your sounds together and bussing those drums together before you take them into your track, which is a really great idea because an important part of programming drums is actually kind of bussing them together, compression, effects, reverb, delay, kind of stuff that helps them all kind of gel and fit together that way. And Spark has all that stuff built in. In my mixer view down here, you can see each drum individually has different volume controls. I can then put different effects on there. I've got things like EQ, a bit crusher, chorus, compression, delay, distortion, EQ, and a phaser available for each drum. I've also got two different effects sends for each drum. Those are the aux1 and aux2 that you're able to control up here. So by default, I've got just a reverb and a delay on each one of those, and that's a really quick way to kind of just add some reverb to those individual drums, maybe some delay to kind of add a slapback or some kind of cool pattern additionally to that. And then I've got a compressor on my output. You can select any of those effects for your output, but compression is a really important studio technique. Compression is a really important studio technique, especially for drums, and like I said, getting your drum sounds and your tracks to kind of start fitting together and gelling together. You can also open up Spark as a standalone plugin, either in 2-channel mode or multi-channel mode, so if you prefer to mix your drums inside a DAW like Logic or Ableton, you can always do that as well. So Arturia Spark really seeks to be your all-in-one drum solution for your tracks as well as building new ideas. Arturia is well known for their software plugins. Their synthesizers sound great and do a good job of both replicating older synthesizers and creating new synthesis sounds as well. And the Spark has some of those synthesizer elements built in along with a whole bunch of great samples right inside the software. So if you're someone who's used to dragging sounds into your DAW and kind of chopping them up that way with your mouse and you're kind of tired of that and you want to get a little more hands-on, or maybe you're somebody who already has software, drum software, but wants to be able to do more than just play on the pads, you want to be able to actually get in depth and tweak some of those sounds in real time, then Spark could definitely be for you. To learn more about Arturia Spark and for the best deals on all Arturia products, be sure to call, chat, or email us at ProAudioStar.com.